Friends, good morning, my family, good morning, everyone. So grateful to be here with you on this overcast day here at Drumming Sounds World Headquarters in beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. Just looking at my unkept backyard. We've let it go rogue. Monica loves the flowers that come out in the weeds. So, kind of reminds me of being a kid in Oregon, to be honest with you. And I know eventually I'm going to need to mow this yard, but...
It's such a America thought to think like the flower weeds aren't beautiful.
Yeah, I know. Monica says that it's just it's an institutional thought to think that the weeds are not beautiful, right? It's we're institutionalized to think that we have to have perfect little yards. Jeremy, good to see you. And this morning, stepping into this altar here, this prayer place, just really grateful to be here and have this opportunity to share over Facebook and, enjoying myself and enjoying the process of awakening the day, getting to experience what today unfolds. I have some plans for today, but it's, it's also encouraging to find the place of rest. So one of the things that Monica wanted me to share with all of you this morning is just to encourage yourself to stay in your response to your own mental condition, and I know that this is challenging for us to really lean into where we're feeling the trauma of the quarantine, where we're feeling the trauma of the isolation and the fear and all of these things. But I also believe, and this is my current personal reference to my own trauma, is that we will not heal that which we do not feel. And the collective consciousness, the global state that we're in, is fortifying a metaphysical architecture of trauma, right? We're all basically adding to that unless we're conscious enough to deal with it on a daily basis. And when we deal with our trauma, right, for those of us that are self-aware, we know that there's a perspective of our trauma, that we must first identify that feeling, that field. We must be able to allow ourselves to even feel into that space. And these are some of the tools that we learn as we begin to evolve and mature spiritually. We learn to, good morning, everyone. We learn to have a perspective of our own emotions. And this process does take time. It does take self-awareness, but it is worth the opportunity that it presents to you in your life. As you begin to evolve into your own emotional awareness, you then begin to process your trauma. And yesterday we talked about breathing, biodynamic breathing. We talked about the loosening of trauma through the breath. There are also other ways that you can utilize the density of human emotion inside of trauma to be the catalyst for creativity, imagination, innovation, and your ability to utilize it in your service work. And these are very powerful principles of how relating to your trauma and relating to the trauma that's basically the air that we breathe right now in the quarantine. These are ways that you can begin to hone this skill. And the skill of empathy, the skill of being able to really emotionally reason within yourself. And I'm not talking about the linear, logical sort of solution-minded reasoning. There are two differences, and this comes from the feminine and the masculine. When the feminine and the masculine work in balance with the inner child, it does create a trinity of equality. And that trinity of equality, or the triangle in itself, is the most powerful form of geometry. The triangle is the basis of the pyramids in Egypt. It's the basis of the pyramids in the Aztecs, the Mayans, all of these structures that have stood the weathering of time. They have stood throughout history. These massive structures are built around the concept of the pyramid, right? The pyramid, and then we have the structure of the square, which right now I'm going to focus on the sacred geometry of the triangle and how the equality between the feminine, the masculine, and the inner child brings us to a place of looking at our trauma, looking at the energy of our emotions, and finding a way to transform that energy into that which serves you. If you can look at your trauma and you can allow yourself to sit with that and to be present with your trauma, what you can do is you can harness that energy. And that energy is actually the probably, well, I don't like to use probably, but it has limitless potential. It has limitless potential to transform you, your world, and your intimate relationships. And this is an important process because we as human beings, right, we have wanted a catalyst for transformation. Those of us that are in the visionary space that have come into this incarnation with the realization of what it means to be from the future and to know that the future is a place of peaceful coexistence, right? There is an interdimensional reality where the future is a peaceful coexistence, where there are gardens on the outside of the buildings, where we are creating urban farming, where we are nourishing the hungry, we're revitalizing, reconciling ourselves back to nature. This visionary space and the transformation that this visionary space needs to endure in order to acquire that visionary space, there needs to be a fuel for that transformation. Now, this is an outward projection of an inward process. The inward process of what it means to be in relationship to your trauma is the process in which we begin to overcome and manifest your optimal state of human design. And I like to use, I'm using the word overcoming, but it's actually a process of utilization of the energy of that trauma. So if you have, like, let's say, for instance, there's a space inside of you, you know, like myself, I had the experience of being a heroin addict, a crackhead, all of these things, as I grew up in the culture of dysfunction, my family culture of drug use, it was natural for me to go into those addicted behaviors. Not to say that every person that grows up with drug addict parents becomes a drug addict, or every person that grows up with Baptist minister parents becomes a Baptist minister. It doesn't happen that way. But the influences that are in your life, the epigenetics, right, the environment that you grow up in does tend to create a cultural identity. And in my life, right, that space of that cultural identity led me to multiple childhood traumas. Those multiple childhood traumas, they became dense energy inside of me. And that was because of my own inability as an immature person to sit with the density of that energy and utilize it for transformation. So as we look at this in the personal, right, so as above, so below, as in, so out, right? The darkness, the light, as we begin to reflect upon how we as individuals relate to the personal issues that have brought us to a place of sovereignty, we can then relate to it on a macro scale. The micro scale being on the individual process of relating to our trauma and the density of that suffering to be a catalyst for our service. Our service being in relationship and the magnification of empathy. Why is empathy so important in our lives? Why is empathy a gift and not a curse? These are important questions as those of us that have, tried to utilize a substance to deny our empathy, that have sought only relationships with those individuals that can be a yes man, those individuals that can reflect to us only like what we want them to reflect to us, those parts of us that stay in the contained confinement and conditioning of this world. This world is generally 20 to 30 years behind the curve. And what I mean by that is the contemporary culture, the news media, the institutions that are around us. I mean, think about how long it took McDonald's to have a salad on their menu. How long did it take Burger King to have a vegan burger? How long did it take? I mean, think about this. Think about like all the changes and transformations that have happened in our lives that have been like out there for years, right? They're out there for 100 years. It's been a part of the contemporary culture to eat plant-based food. But how long does it take for Burger King and McDonald's to put even a salad on their menu? I know when they did that. It was in my lifetime, right? These are the institutions that are not upon the curve. You want to be upon the curve. You want to be riding the wave, right? Don't listen to the contemporary culture and its inability to really step into that place. And I heard this today on really powerful podcast I was listening to, and it was great, man. I was listening, I was reflecting upon that, and it's so true. You know, so many of the institutions that are out there that are supposedly helping us in our lives, that are supposedly going to educate us and gonna like bring transformation. Look at the education system, for instance. The education system is outdated the minute that you receive the diploma. All of these institutional mindsets are actually outdated. Be on the curve, right? Be riding the wave. You want to be right here, man. You want to be right on the cusp of revolutionary thinking, of mindfulness, of all of these things. And so it is with our trauma. We want to be ahead of our trauma. We don't want to just wait for the institution to bring us the knowledge of how to utilize the density of our suffering to transform our world. We need to be the initiators. It's up to us, and that's what's so beautiful about Facebook. That's what's so beautiful about YouTube. There's finally a channel where we can get these innovative thoughts going, where we can sit and marinate on what it means to be in the place of understanding our emotions, not as captivity any longer, but as the catalyst for transformation. So we've densified this magnitude of human suffering around the globe. We have created the fortification of this density called COVID, Corona. Guess what's inside of that? Potential. The energetic potential inside of the collective consciousness, and even the entity that is the fear-based the source of energy that's associated with COVID. This is a huge potential for the transformation of collective consciousness. Now, why do we know this so innately? Me and Monica know this because this is what we practice. We practice not fearing our empathy. And this is a condition, right? You know, when you look at neuroplasticity and you look at the ability of the mind to actually transform, it takes practice. There are very few people that can pick up an instrument and play a drum or play a flute or play a guitar perfectly the first time they do it. I'm not saying that there aren't people that can do that, but it's the same conditioning with your mind. You have been born into slavery to your emotions. We all have. Very few of us have been born into a container of revelatory experience with our emotional energy. It is our responsibility to now hone the gift of our empathy, hone it in a way that brings about sovereignty. Sovereignty is the ability to navigate your emotions, to navigate the energy sources within your life, the density of your own human suffering. And I know I'm speaking to someone as I'm sharing this with you, because there are people in the audience right now, I can feel it in my heart, that have been in relationship to your trauma. You have known that these things happened to you as a child, yet you have yet to use it in your life to help another person and to help yourself. The great thing about the gift of empathy is you begin to empathize with the trauma in your life, the sexual abuse. I'm being real here. The trauma of sexual abuse, the horrible act of physical abuse, verbal abuse, the density of that human suffering that you went through in your life is the energy that will be the fuel for the fire of transformation if you allow yourself to encourage the process of the neuroplasticity. You must challenge yourself in this time. You must. If you want to stay on the wave, if you want to stay on the curve, if you want to be able to ride the wave instead of being thrown to the wayside, right? We are those individuals. We are the ones who have been called to go into that energy and to utilize it for the transformation of our lives. How does it happen in our home? You know, my relationship with my daughter is built around honest emotions. How can I be a father to my daughter if I am not able to sit with my own feelings, my own trauma, my own insecurities, my own ability to be present with myself? Right? And not some spiritual bypass bullshit. Love this, love that, love. You know, so many people are high off of that love. Oh, let's just all love each other. We're all just one. You know, yeah, we're all just one, but I also, you know, I have the realization inside of me that oneness is a confrontation. Oneness is a confrontation. Now, how can this be? Stay with me here, please. Okay, many of you that are out there and you're smoking the oneness, You're so high off of the oneness. Oh, love everybody. You have yet to realize the indigenous mindset. The oneness is the assimilation for many tribal people. So when you come and you're like speaking in front of a group of people and you're talking about oneness and this and that and all of these ideas, think about the lives of the tribal people that have died because of your bullshit oneness. Think about the natives that went into the boarding schools because of the idea of oneness. You're so freaking high off that oneness in your hippie mindset that you have yet to realize how confrontational oneness is. Now, I'm not going to say that I'm not a proponent of oneness. Of course, all my relations. It's a natural concept within indigenous thinking. But it's also confrontational, okay? So be sensitive in the application of oneness. Don't use it as a spiritual bypass. Don't use it as your authority to end racism, okay? These are bullshit ideas, because the reality is that you're so limited in your own ability to confront your racism that you want to bypass it with the bullshit of love and oneness. Sit with your racism, man. Sit with it. Sit with your bigotry. Realize it's inside of you. I grew up in a home where the N-word was thrown around constantly, and it wasn't like, something where it was like, hey, let's high five and talk about these things. No. I grew up in a home that was divided on so many sides. For me, racism is a part of the air that I have breathed since I was a kid. I grew up white in a brown neighborhood and brown in a white neighborhood. I have lived in racism my entire life. So it's racism. It's bigotry. It's there. Okay? Don't try to avoid some stuff by sweeping it under the rug. It's the same thing with the way we relate to COVID. Many of you are continually staying in your spiritual blah, blah, blah. You're smoking that oneness, smoking that love, and yet you have yet to utilize the trauma that's associated with your relationship to Corona and the COVID. And I'm saying this to you because I care about you and I love you, honestly. Not some bullshit spiritual love that says, oh, brother, it's okay. Oh, brother, it's all going to be all right. Let me pat you on the back and pacify you. No, the love that says, you know what? Let's go with this together. I'm here to sit with you in this. I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm challenged myself to sit with it. Why? Because the density of human suffering is the catalyst for transformation. And when you free yourself from this through the practice of the neuroplasticity, right, the ability to hone in your empathy, to not say, oh, I'm feeling something in my body, it's anxiety. How many times have you ran to the bottle of whiskey, ran to the beer, ran to go smoke some weed, ran to go take some whatever because you're feeling something? That becomes your response, and you become immature in your maturity to harness the power of energy. Right? Why is it that we are given the opportunity to sit with suffering? It is an opportunity to sit with your suffering. It is a catalyst for the transformation of your own personal energy. It is a practice. If we're talking about Jedi ninja stuff, this is it. This is some amazing abilities that the Creator has installed in you. And it takes courage. But we're together in this. And guess what? We have wanted there to be a transformation in our culture. So have we been calling this in? Oh, man. This goes back to the pre-existence. I'm going to take it into the personal now. For those of you that have read my book, you know that I understand the soul in a nonlinear conceptualization of reality, in the cycle of life. Incarnations, multiple lifetimes. I believe in this stuff. And I really believe that we chose who we were going to be birthed to, who our grandparents were going to be. All of them came together in council, the sacred seven, the foundation within the sacred geometry of the flower of life, the seven circles moving themselves in intersection. The intersection is the birth of the woven fabric of DNA in this plane of existence. Those seven circles working simultaneously came to agreement to manifest you. And as they manifested you, they said that you would experience these things in agreement with the universal consciousness. Because the universe is an experiential God. The universe is an experiential nature. The universe has an experiential energy behind it. Universe wants to experience, abundance, wants to experience joy, wants to experience love. And the universe understands that the density of suffering is a catalyst for energy. How can you look at the element itself? The mountain is made out of particles of sand. The universe itself is made out of particles. Particles coming together with conscious agreement. The density of the reality is created through conscious agreement. Particles in wave forming themselves in density, density creating building blocks creating structures. So it is in the energetic. As above, so below. Realize that the potential of our relationship to the suffering, the global suffering of the COVID, that energy is existing to be the catalyst for the transformation of humanity on a global scale. So it is with your own. Now, I want to be a part of the group of people that are challenged to go into that density and utilize it. Utilize it for something beautiful. Is it already happening? It is already happening. We're here today because of it. Now, I want to challenge you. What is your utilization for the suffering that is in relationship to COVID? And what is your relationship to your own suffering? Have you understood your trauma enough to be in relationship with it, to utilize it for sovereignty? I want to help you with that. Please get my book for free. If you don't have the money to buy the book, get the book. It talks about metaphysical architecture. It talks about the density of suffering. It talks about the relational foundation within the Sacred Seven, your very baseline relationships that affect all relationships. Many of us sit inside of this construct, right? And we are in the construct of reality and in the construct of this space. We're so filled with anxiety, so filled with social awkwardness and all of these things. And it's all created inside of our minds. Why? Much of it is founded in our relationship to our Sacred Seven. We have yet to sit with the relationship that we have to our mom. We have yet to sit with the relationship that we have with our father, with our grandparents. Many of us don't even know how to identify ourselves as a child or a grandchild. And these questions that come in, when I say to a group of young people, you are in the indigenous mindset, a child and a grandchild. This is the fundamental spiritual foundation of all spiritual teachings. Without this understanding, to comprehend the universe and to comprehend God and to comprehend the air, the water, the fire, the earth, and to be in relationship to everything that is outside of you is almost it's totally putting the cart before the horse. It's like giving a bicycle to a baby and telling them to ride a bike before they can walk. We are so conditioned to be enslaved. We are fundamentally conditioned to be enslaved to our ignorance. There are blinded people walking among us, zombies walking among us, that have yet to even realize that they're a child. And they wonder, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? They say to themselves. They say these ridiculous things to themselves. I was watching HBO. And LeBron James comes on, right? And it's in the barbershop, and it's all these African-American rappers and movie guys and all this stuff. And LeBron James, one of the arguably the greatest basketball player that ever played in the history of the game, gets on there and says, the reason that we don't succeed, and he's talking about African-American people, and we're addicted to drugs and alcohol and gangs and all this stuff, is because we don't know who we are. And I think to myself, brother, man, I love you so much, man. I love your game. I love how you do, your art of basketball. You're a child, man. You're a grandchild. Like, why is this not a part of our language? Why is it that we are not fortifying the idea that we know who you are? I know who you are. Because this reality has a carrot dangling in front of the cart that weighs 20 million pounds. We're freaking pushing the cart of success and social status and all of these weighted down burdens. And we have yet to sit with the idea that we're a child, that we're a grandchild. And then some people say, oh, well, I've never even thought that I related to my family. When did that come in your mind? When did that idea come in your mind? What institution put it in your mind that you're not related to your family? How did this illusion come into your mind? It was probably because you were like me and you were watching the Brady Bunch and Family Matters and all these bullshit television shows, thinking about the Cosby Show, thinking about how you wanted that fantasy of your life, right? You know, your mom can't be a drug addict. I can't be born into this reality. My dad can't be a heroin addict. I was supposed to have the Cosby Show. That was supposed to be my world. Come on, man. Wake up, people. I know what it's like to be in your space because I was there. I was fooled by the illusion of the confusion. I was led astray by it. I was so enslaved to the captivity of the struggle, to sit with the reality of who I am. And then when I came to that place of realization, woo, the freedom. As those chains of slavery from the ideologies of the captivity of this contemporary culture begin to fade, begin to flow away, they begin to turn to dust right before your eyes. How you feel empowered, man. This is the empowerment of what it means to be in the collective consciousness of the universe. This is the empowerment of what it means to be not just, a part of God, but God, man. This is the thing. In the sweat lodge, we go in there and pray. And I remember Uncle Ted Begay. Oh my gosh, I love this man. For probably about 3 years of me going to sweat, he would look over at me with this eye like this. One of these. You ever sat with a spiritual teacher that gives you one of these? Have you ever been with somebody like that, right? Have you ever had... Oh man, have you ever been with a teacher, a guru, a sensei that gives you this one? And this was how Uncle Ted was, Like for years, man, I would sit there and I would think, this dude doesn't even like me. He's putting up with me, okay? That's what I would think to myself. And then I came to the place where, I started feeling his love, as a man, as an indigenous teacher. And I began to realize, how beautiful it is to be able to sit with a teacher like that. That's going to give you one of these eyes. Like, what are you doing with yourself? Like, this is real love, man. This is real love. And he would, say things to us and really in his broken English, because this man's first language was Dene. He grew up on the res and, was rode horses his childhood. I mean, he speaks English fluently, but it wasn't his first language. That wasn't his culture that he came into. And, he would correct the people that would come in, and myself too, like correct us with the foundational, frustrations and also patience. And that's important. If you're looking for a person that you can learn from, don't just realize them in their patience, but realize them in their, if they show patience and frustration for you, it's probably because they care about you. That they actually have the connection to you, to love you enough to get frustrated about, what's going on in your life, to love you enough to see your own captivity, to see your own inability to embrace your greatest potential. This is an important process to realize if you're looking for someone to help you and sit with you in circle. If they're just like, taking a hit off the oneness and the love all the time, and they're not, going to give you a word of correction, probably your ego isn't ready for that word of correction. Or, you have yet to really understand what it means to be with a person that will love you enough to share with you, hey, you know what, you're blinded here. And so it was with, in my relationship, my still permanent relationship with Uncle Ted. That this man would share, a word of correction to us. And one of the things that would happen oftentimes is this very foundational experience of self-identity. Many of the men, the spiritual community that I belong to is at Native American Connections. It's a Patina Wellness Center. It's an alcohol and drug rehabilitation facility. And I love going there because I'm able to share in the Sweat Lodge, and I'm able to utilize my medicine, the medicine that I've been through in my life, to hopefully help others. And in that space, I've learned to have a place in that lodge. And I've learned to sing, and I've learned to pray, and I've learned to talk, and I've learned all these things about myself in that container. A container of sitting in circle, that's a different, also very key difference in how we evolve, right? In the linear, when we go to church, there's always a person in front of us. There's always this line, creating leaders and followers. The line of creating leaders and followers is a conditioning in itself. The indigenous way is to sit in circle. Why? Because the circle is equality and the circle is strength. These are important processes as we begin to step into that place of creating a culture that utilizes the ancient technologies and the contemporary. And I want to be in circle, so I sat in there and many times in the heat and in the uncomfortable, sometimes it'd be crowded in there, hardly able to breathe because there's all these men around me, trying to find their healing and coming there for healing. And Uncle Ted, he'd oftentimes, guys would introduce themselves. Hi, my name is Ed and I'm an addict. And he would let it go on, and then as it came back around to him, he would say, in here with these stone people, with the stones in the Sweat Lodge, with the water that's here, with the earth that's here, with the womb that is here, with the elements that are here, with the deities that are here, you're not an addict, you're a holy person. And as he said this to these men, some of them with facial tattoos, sleeve down, straight out of the joint, gangsters. I mean, hardcore gangsters. And he said this to them and it began to loosen them. And I could see that once in their life, maybe, somebody was holding space for them to be holy. Now, what does it mean if someone holds space for you to be holy? It means now you have a metaphysical architecture. There's somebody holding the energy of that. And if you can understand that and be in relationship to it, maybe you can begin to hold that for yourself. Maybe you can be in relationship to it. And what does it take to fortify the walls of the architecture of your own self-identity? The energy is there in the trauma. The trauma is the fuel for the energy to fortify the architecture of your own self-identity. If you allow yourself to be patient with it, to practice the empathy. Empathy is the greatest gift that I feel the Creator has ever given us. I was sharing with you all that, from time to time we feel something in our body and we call it anxiety. This is the practice of conditioning the neural pathways. When you feel awkward, when you're in line at the grocery store and somebody looks over at you and makes eye contact with you, you look down at your phone. No, discipline yourself. Discipline yourself to look that person in the eye. Discipline yourself to be a strong enough individual to have a human connection with another earthling. Don't look down at the ground. Don't show yourself in this awkward weakness that you've been conditioned to be in. Rise above the conditioning of this contemporary culture. Utilize even the conditioning. Utilize even the slavery to be the catalyst for your own self-realization. You're powerful enough. I believe in you. I believe in you. I know you are holy. I know you are sacred. Uncle Ted, he would say things like, you pray to yourself. That's what he would say. He would say, you're praying to yourself. And I think to myself, what does he mean? He said, he's like, you're God. That's what he would say to us. These are drug addicts, man. Some of them look like they just pulled the needle out of their arm. And he's telling them, you're God. Man, it just opens my heart up, man. Brings tears to my eyes. When I didn't ever hear that when I was out there smoking crack and gang banging and robbing people and all this stuff I went through in my life, man. Nobody ever told me I was God. You know what people told me in the institution? They told me I was born flawed. Do you think I need to hear that shit again? Do you think I need to hear that I was born into sin again? You know what that does? That perpetuates the argument inside of my own mind that, yeah, I'm a piece of shit. That's what it does. But the indigenous teaching says you're God, man. What, I've been taught that I was full of sin ever since the DARE program came into my school and told me that if I have one drug addict parent, I'm 50% more likely to become a drug addict. When they told me I was genetically flawed with their guns and their banners and all of their waving flags and dare to keep a kid off drugs and all of this. That idea of us being genetically flawed, man. That because I'm native, I have a precondition for alcoholism. All this bullshit that this world conditions us into believing. When you sit with an elder and they tell you that you're God, it's like, what? I want to believe that for you, I want to believe that you are God. That you are the wholeness. You are the universe. You're the nothing that became something, said I am, and began to replicate. It's woven into the fabric of our DNA, the universal consciousness, the limitless potential of the goddess, God, the realization of Jesus Christ. Like, you are the Messiah. You know it. I know it. We all know it. We're just waiting for you. Not that you're just the only one, okay? Don't get me wrong and inflate your ego. You might go out there and start preaching on the street corner. What I'm sharing with you is that we're walking in the Messiahship. We're walking in a nation of medicine people, a nation of priests, a nation of priestesses, a nation of holy individuals called to be in relationship with one another, to be in relationship with the feminine, the masculine, the child, to be in relationship with our family, to be in relationship with our community, to be in relationship with the elements. Let us not forsake the density of human suffering captive in our relationship to coronavirus. Let us go deep into the energetic and let us manifest the fuel for the fire of the evolution of our culture. Woo! Believe it with me. Believe it with me that out of the density of this suffering, the song and the dance emerges. Believe it with me that we are spiritually evolved enough to be in relationship to our fear, that we can hone our fear to dance through the fear. To feel into it, huh? Love you guys. Why don't we pray for a little while here, huh? Love you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining me today, being with me. I'm going to go ahead and light this altar. Get into this prayer. Woo! That was a good one. Man, I felt some release there. Monica was the one who came up with that topic too. She was like, why don't you talk to them about what to do with their trauma? And then she says this to me. She says, we kind of think a little bit alike about that. So I think we share the same views on that one. In relationships, if you constantly are seeking somebody that's the same as you, I think you're missing out on the ability that you can have together. Is if you let your love be who they are completely, and you allow yourself to be who you are completely, there's beauty in that. Yeah, this one's worth sharing. If it was up to me, I would already be sharing this with my group, my spiritual group on Facebook. I'd be sharing it all over the internet. So I hope you guys are going to share this one. Lighten up this coal for us here. Can you see the smoke? Can you see it? All right. So we got the air, the water, the fire, the earth here on this altar space. And then go ahead and go into the, let me see here. If I turn it that way, then you all can see my name. On my Lego coffee cup. I think it's got all the little Lego guys on there. Is Zeke still on here? Did you play with Legos when you were a kid? Yeah, my cousin was amazing at Legos. This guy, you know what my cousin used to do? This is a funny story before we start praying. When we would play with Legos, I would make these box cars and stuff that were really like, I thought my cousin was going to be an architect. The kid is like, he's really amazing at design. has just that ability to design stuff. I mean, he was like so good at Legos, but he would put the Legos in his mouth. They were kids. Oh, I'm glad he's not on Facebook because I put him on front. But he would put the Legos in his mouth, and he would look like a chipmunk with these Legos. And he would like spit the Legos out and put them on his little structures. Oh, it's funny. Anyway, Frank, I love you. All right, well, let's go into the prayer. I'm going to go ahead, and I think we have some new people here. Is there anybody who's new here in the live to the prayer? I don't know. I haven't really been thinking about that lately, but weird. Nah. Funny, Zeke. All right. So we're going to go ahead and pray now. So the way that I like to pray is to give thanks for that which we do not see yet, knowing that it is coming. So I'm going to pray into this space, and then at some point I'll pray in the Holy Ghost, which means I'll be praying in a light language, a language of infinite possibility. Hopefully in my space I hold that in my heart, that you will receive it on a spiritual level. And then we'll move into the gift of prophecy and the gift of encouragement. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself here to you in the traditional language, and then also in the contemporary. Introduce myself to the fireplace here. Dogate Andrew Ecker Yinishe, Donna E Nishinigi E Ide Nishe, Irish Bashachin, Ide Dashache, German Dashanali, Akote Go E Tishli E Portland, Oregon Inasha, Shama E Kathy Lindsay Woye, Shaza E Dale Ecker Wole. My name is Andrew Ecker, my mother Kathy Lindsay, my father Dale Ecker, my mother's mother Elva Gallegos, Apache woman from New Mexico, my father's mother Evelyn Beatty, an Irish woman from Pennsylvania. My mother's father, Leroy Lindsay, Apache man from Arkansas. My father's father, Wayne Ecker, a German and Algonquin from Pennsylvania. I have a daughter, Bailey, a son, Peyton, a beautiful, beloved fiance, Monica. Very grateful to be here with all of you. So let us go into the prayer place now. So just relaxing into the moment, finding yourself in a relaxed space, really honing into the earth, feeling your connection to the earth, grounding in. So we ground into this place and really offer ourselves to this prayer. And take a couple deep breaths here. Really relax. Just open up the heart and just allow for the Holy Spirit to manifest. Allow for the Spirit of the great I am, the mystery, the oneness. Oh, Mother Mary, Kuan Yin, the goddess within us, the God within us, the holiness within us, the divine feminine, the divine masculine, the inner child to be here as we relate to our new relationships, our family, our community, and the elements. As we come into this place, we allow for the doorway in and the doorway out to manifest itself. The circle of life. We manifest this circle and this connection to all my relations that are tuning in here via this light channel, this channel of Facebook and the internet. And right now we give thanks for the prayer place. We give thanks that before the foundations of the earth, that this prayer place was created, that this infinite revelation and relationship with source energy, this abundant flow of life, this intersection of the stars in the sky and the very center of the earth, this place in which the torrent of energy manifests itself, the cycle, the Merkaba, the very beautiful energy that is flowing through us and around us. We give thanks for all the sacred geometry, the dodecahedron, the cuba-octahedron. We give thanks for the triangle, the square, the circle, all the forms of sacred geometry that create this reality, the tree of life, the cube. Oh, we give thanks right now for the air, the water, the fire, the earth, gravity, time, spirit. We give thanks for all of our relations, our moms, our dads, our grandmas, our grandpas, our aunties, our uncles, our cousins, our sons, our daughters. We give thanks for those that have come to this place seeking healing of their bodies. We give thanks for the healing of transformation of the density of suffering into sovereignty and spiritual awakenness. We thank you that we are alive today, that we are living life. I thank you that you are healing a leg, that there's a person with a sore leg that's feeling the release of that sickness from their leg, that you are moving that sickness to the earth, that the earth is even taking that sickness, that there is someone here in this prayer field that is needing release in their hips and in their back, their lower back and in their knees. And we just pray that energy, that density of suffering would be released now, and that we would allow for ourselves to be in this place of encouragement, knowing that there is healing that is transforming our reality even right now. We thank you for the person who is feeling that tension in their elbows, that tension in their wrists, that pain in their body now, a release of transformation, that the stress is even flowing from them right now in this prayer field, that there is a release, that there are those that are suffering from depression, and right now the depression is being removed right now in this prayer field, that we are allowing ourselves to be in a place of divine healing. We thank you that the air, the water, the fire, the earth, gravity, time, and the source of life, the great mystery, the I am, Yahweh, Jehovah, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Nisi, Jesus Christ, the Holy One that is here right now in this place, the place of our ancestors that are here, our guides that are making a way to this place, the angels themselves even going out and ministering right now to those that are in this prayer field that are needing the miracle, the awakening, the acknowledgement of what it means to be in the prayer, what it means to be in a field of light. As we release ourselves to this place of infinite possibility, we know that you have worked now, that you have healed eyes, that you have healed hearing, that you have allowed for us to pray into the place of divine healing, that the systems of the body, that the very systems, the DNA, the very genetic codes, the skeleton, the system of our bones, the system of our muscles, the system of our respiratory system, our digestive system, our circulatory system, our nervous system, all the systems now coming into alignment, bringing about divine healing and transformation. We thank you that you have worked now in the seen and unseen parts, that our collective experience and our infinite place of connection is now real in this place, that you've shown us a witness of healing in our midst, that you have removed the density, that you have transformed our lives, that we are even feeling better even right now. We thank you that you have empowered the government, that you have empowered those individuals that are in that place of authority, that you have allowed for them to be focused on what it means to give us a quality of life, that they are in a place of revelation. We thank you for the presidential cabinet, the legislative cabinet, the judiciary cabinet. We thank you for all the offices of the authorities within the military-industrial complex. We thank you for bringing about peace. We thank you for bringing about love. We thank you for the opening of the prison doors and the setting free of the captives. We thank you that you have moved upon the legislation and the drug crimes, Creator God, and that you have helped us through this struggle. We thank you that you have moved now in the seen and unseen parts to make a way for us so that we could be in the holiness right now, that we could be in a place of restorative justice. We thank you for restorative justice upon the earth. We thank you for the manifestation of communities that care. We thank you for the manifestation of industry and businesses that are placed around the reconciliation and redemption of our environment. We thank you that we have been called to a place to produce, to restore people, families, community, and the planet. We thank you that the environment is restoring itself. We thank you that the oceans are restoring themselves, that the rivers are restoring themselves. We thank you that Mother Earth is a part of this dynamic healing. We pray for healing in Mother Earth. We pray for healing in the air, the water, the fire. We thank you for a reconciled relationship to energy. We thank you that we are burning even clean energy right now. We thank you that our air is being cleaned. We thank you that there is an initiation of power movement upon the earth, that we are going into the density even of our relationship to coronavirus. And as we go into this place, we loosen the power of fear and we bind ourselves to the holiness of the ability to transform this energy into love. We thank you that love has manifested itself, that there is a power now moving upon the earth, that there are gardens on the outside of the buildings, that there is a redemption back to the sacredness of nature. We thank you that people are gardening in their backyard, that people are growing food for themselves. We thank you for the initiation of the ability to be gardeners. We thank you for the process of blessing our plants. We thank you for blessing our trees, for bringing rains to our lands, that they would nourish the plants, nourish the earth. We thank you for the water and our relationship to the water. We thank you for the air and our relationship to the air, for the fire, for the earth itself. We thank you for the very density of the below place. the place of darkness, the sacred womb. We thank you for the underworld. We thank you for the heavenly place, the host in the heavens. We thank you for the star nations themselves that have sent down a signal to us. We thank you for the signaling of the star nations. We thank you for the ability for us to see into the heavenly realms and to know that they are here guiding us and protecting us. We thank you for the utilization of the Council of Peace. We thank you for the Council of the Star Nations. We thank you for the ability to plead with the universe for more time for humanity to be awakened to the process of reconciliation. We thank you that we have more time. We thank you for the ability to be in a place in which we realize that the next 7 generations are living better than the 7 generations in the past. We thank you that we are living in a place of great redemption and holiness upon the earth. Bani totari wa koma ta sinita ore makata anes shadi tu kamari wa komari inki nana ye nana ma o anewane mo anewani o asinitu oh Ware wa one te waka sani onye shene ma aka anet one te asati o ke shini ta yore maka anata ru ku kine The fortified field of self-realization gives witness to the process of transformation. As we utilize this place of understanding relational spirituality, as we allow ourselves to be equipped, and as we allow ourselves to be in process, we are together. The great councils that we have sat in, the great councils that we have known, the great councils that we have produced in a place of defining has promoted the realization of a witness of peace. The Council of Peace. Let it be known that the energy that has designed this universe is held for those that are in a place of maturity, is held for those that are in a place of understanding. And the perfectness of this world is only seen by those that have found perfection within themselves. My name is Andrew Ecker. My mother, Kathy Lindsay. My father, Dale Ecker. My mother's mother, Elva Gallegos. My father's mother, Evelyn Beatty. My mother's father, Leroy Lindsay. My father's father, Wayne Ecker. I give thanks to you. Give thanks to you, all of you, for being here with me. As I sat in the place of connection to the Holy Spirit, I felt the expanse of the consciousness into this place of interdimensional counsel. And the angelic open up, and I was sitting in that council on another plane of existence. And in that plane of existence, I was realizing the comfort of perfection. And the comfort of perfection is something that we only know in the place of our internal reasoning. It's something that you have to give to yourself to understand that you are God, but you have to go to the bathroom every morning. Oh man, I love it. All right. Love you guys. Thank you so much for joining me here, for praying with me. Bless you. Please get a copy of my book. It's in the comments. The Sacred Seven. Free copy sent to you, PDF copy. Just please connect with us. Like our pages, Drumming Sounds. We're getting ready to do a drum circle the 25th. We have a sponsored drum circle by the Arizona Brain Injury Association. They're sponsoring a circle for us. So please tune into that. It'll be on our pages, Drumming Sounds and Sacred Seven. Getting ready to launch another group into the technology of the ceremonial introduction if you're interested in that. And love you guys so much. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Blessings.